What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode here on our AJ-1 Savage. Today we're going to be jumping on in and trying to get this thing looking a little bit more like an airplane. So let's go ahead and grab the kit and get started. So here we go. This is what we've got so far. We've got our fuselage mostly together. We've got our wings and our engines together, but we need to go ahead and fix up the seam line between the nacelle and the lower portion of the wing. That's got to be fixed. And then we've got our canopy right here. It's all nicely masked off. We need to paint that and then install it onto the fuselage. And then I think the fuselage will be pretty decently ready to go ahead and prime. We also need to go ahead and jump in there and overcoat the cockpit with a little bit of clear flat to make sure that everything is uniform. And then of course we can come back in, work on getting the wings attached to the fuselage. And that's going to be a little bit on the difficult side because there is so much play. The dihedral might be completely screwed up. So I want to make sure I can figure that out. And that's going to require a little bit of extra sanding, polishing, cleaning up, all that good stuff. So go ahead and jump into our first time lapse. I want to start with the engine and the wing assembly seams. Need to make sure that I remove all those, get that ready to rock. And then I think we'll paint the canopy. Then we'll put on a couple of extra details and we'll be back and I'll show you guys what we come up with. All right, let's get this party started. All right, so we've gotten all the fuselage ready to go. We've got everything sanded down. We've added in a little bit of clear flat for the cockpit, and I really like how this has turned out. We also added in these little winglets in the very back of the tail, so those are good to go. And we fixed up the seam for the engines. So now we need to go ahead and try to assemble the wings to the fuselage, and that's going to be a little bit tricky. Like I said before, there's so much play, up and down movement, that I don't want that to kind of screw up my dihedral. Now, luckily for me, I have this great reference book that has a lot of pictures and line drawings that I can go ahead and use to figure out the dihedral. And from what I have seen, it looks to be a pretty flat top wing. Doesn't seem to be any sort of upward curve or anything like that. Now the rear tail though, those have a definite upwards dihedral. So that's going to be interesting to go ahead and get that on. So let's go ahead and just jump back into the time lapse. I need to go ahead and do a little bit of sanding, a little bit of filing. I've noticed the left wing has a little bit more of a forward position. So I want to go ahead and remove some of the plastic on the fuselage side for the tab. And then I can go ahead and shift that wing back to go ahead and line up up the leading edges. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to grab our geoda files, come in there, start sanding a couple areas down, clean up the joints between the wing and the fuselage. Then we'll go ahead and glue everything up. Then we'll come on back, shore it up with some super glue, and I think we're going to be good to go. So let's jump back in there, get the wings hooked on, get the tail all nicely finished up, work on those wing joints. All right, let's keep it going. All right, so we are back and we have definitely done quite a bit of work there on the Savage. It's coming along, it's looking decent, but we need to go ahead and do a lot more work before we can get this thing done. You'll notice in the time lapse, I actually went ahead and started working on the front gear bay door. The reasoning behind this is what we have here in the kit is actually a split door. It's actually for the Dash 2, the later version. In the early AJ-1 Savages, we have actually a single piece door. So to make that, I just joined the right and left side of the two-piece door to create one door. I don't know how accurate this is going to be in terms of details on the inside of the door. I'm not really that concerned about it, but I needed to go ahead and kind of mate those surfaces together and then take some styrene and fill in some of the lost details there on the inside. I also took a little bit of super glue, dropped a little bit here and there, cleared it up. I needed to go ahead and sand it down, and I think it's going to be good for next episode when we start doing some priming. We'll see how it looks, but I think we're on the right track. We also have to work on the propellers, and these are very interesting looking props. They're very large, very squared off propeller blades, and they have quite a bit of flash on every single edge. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into our last time lapse of the day, and we're going to work on the props. We're going to sand down the blades, go ahead and sand down the nose cone, and then work a little bit on how this goes together. These are individual blades, and I'm not super excited about that. I usually find that that tends to be more complicated. You have to worry about forward and backward movement, side to side movement, making sure everything is nicely squared up or parallel or whatever the case may be. These look to be a little bit more labor intensive. So let's go ahead and jump back into our last time lapse, clean up all the parts, try to assemble these, and then I want to go ahead and start cleaning up some of the other details like the main wheels and the nose wheel. Let's go ahead and jump back in. We're almost done for the day. And we are back, everybody. This has been a really great episode. Not a whole lot happened though, but then again, a lot actually did, because as you will see here, we have the Savage looking like a Savage. And here we go. As you can see, the wings are attached. We have the cockpit canopy on. We have everything sanded down. Plastic is much smoother than it was. Canopy is glued down just with some white Elmer's school glue. And then we've got everything nicely tapered in around the engines and the wing joints. We have a Bombay door cover on there. And as well, I put one more bit of weight in the very front of that bulkhead. And as you can see, it does nicely sit on its 3 gears. So I'm pretty happy about that. Otherwise, though, I think we're in good position for next episode to come on back and start doing some priming and then doing some painting. And I think at that point, we will be almost finished. When I come back next episode, I think what we're going to do is we're going to cover up the entry door right here, as well as the main gear bays and the nose gear bay, once I get that painted, of course. And then we can come in with our primer and hit everything with a nice primer coat. And then we can start doing a little bit of pre-shade. Now, this is going to be a little bit interesting because it is a sea blue aircraft. So you're not really going to see a whole lot, but we're going to have to get in there and see what we can do when that time comes. But so far, the kit is looking decent. I'm actually very surprised. Along with those, we do have our propellers nicely prepared. They do need a little bit more work, but because the glue is still drying, I don't want to screw up any sort of my alignment. But these will eventually be glued onto the front of each of these nacelles right like this. But they aren't necessarily right in the middle of each of those nacelles, so I might have to just go ahead and cut off that support and just glue it down in there and just call it a day. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but as you can see, this is a pretty beefy looking propeller. It's a very impressive looking bomber for sure. Along with those propellers, we have also done a little bit of work there on the main wheels as well as the nose wheel. Those have been nicely sanded, so we're ready for primer and paint, and we'll get on that towards the end of the build so I don't screw up anything there on the landing gears. And we also have the wingtip tanks. I'm not sure if I'm going to go ahead and put those on. There is a little bit of discrepancy between some of my references. Sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have the propeller nose cone, sometimes you don't. So I don't really know what I want to do just yet, but we're going to get into it eventually and I'll figure it out. I could probably leave them off or put them on. It'd be fine either way. So we have some options here. And lastly, guys, we did go ahead and work on that front nose gear bay door. And I did have to join the 2 sides to make the single door. And that's going to be glued somewhere here on the side, right around this area right here. And I think that's going to be just fine. We'll prime it, paint it, and get that squared away eventually. I think there's a little bit of a seam there on the very front of it. We might have to go ahead and add in a bit more super glue, sand it down, and I think that'll be fine for that one. This kit has been a slow process. We do have everything now looking like we're ready for priming and painting, so that's excellent, but it took us a while to get here. You know, the plastic isn't necessarily perfect. The fit isn't great in certain areas, but the detail on this kit is awesome. I'm having a lot of fun working on it. I just wish it was a bit easier to build, to be honest. But the Savage is a cool looking airplane, so we're going to go and wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 7 for our AJ-1 Savage by Roden here on Military Mondays. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.